If they knew, why are they coming out to meet their deaths? A martial artist was curious. That's right. They know that they are going to die, but they still keep sending more out. Are the leaders of the barbarian tribes crazy? Could it be that there are too many of them and they can't feed them anymore? So they drive out a batch for us to kill, so as to save on food? TCH, you're thinking too much. The boundless mountain range is huge, there must be plenty of resources. How could there be a lack of food? Why did those barbarians suddenly rush out? Wave after wave of them have died. Who knows? They're probably bored out of his mind and tired of living. The group of martial artists in the top ranks who were assisting in the battle started discussing among themselves. Now that the barbarians had died under the shells, there was no need for them to take action. However, as the temporary commander, the great general of the Luori Prefecture army, Lu Renshi, realized that things were not that simple. His gaze fell on the surveillance footage, and the expression on his face became increasingly solemn. "Old Lu, what are you thinking about?" a burly man asked in a low voice. "That's right, Old Lu. Tell us what you've discovered and we'll give you some advice," echoed a muscular middle-aged woman. "No discoveries." Lu Renshi shook his head and said in a low voice, "That's the problem. The barbarians' invasion this time came without any warning. I think there must be a conspiracy behind this." "There's definitely a conspiracy, but aren't we already investigating?" "I believe we'll have an outcome soon," said the muscular woman, Fu Sainan. "The cabinet might know the reason," said the burly man, Fan Batong. "The marshal called last night and asked us to pay attention to the boundless mountain range. Clearly, they know something." Like Lu Renshi, Fan Batong and Fu Sainan were also great generals of the prefecture armies, the commanders of the other two prefectures in the southwest. At this moment, they had gathered at Sunset Cliff because they had received a transfer order and Lu Renshi will temporarily take the spot of Supreme Commander. "I picked up Marshal Zhao's call too. I asked him, but he doesn't know the reason for the barbarian invasion either. He only asked me to pay attention to the mountain range." Lu Renshi shook his head and said in a low voice. "It's fine," said Fan Batong in a low voice. "As long as barbarians in the transcendent grade do not appear, no matter how many other barbarians come, they will die. I'm just afraid." Boom! A loud bang suddenly came from the right and resounded through the sky. Lu Renshi, Fan Batong, and Fu Sainan looked at one another. In the next moment, their figures flashed and they rushed out of the command center. Whoosh! 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 The other martial artists in the top ranks also flew into the sky and looked in the direction of the explosion. In their vision, they saw a burly barbarian more than 4 meters tall stepping in the air and blowing up 2 planes and a cannon platform with a single punch. Boom! Another explosion sounded. The burly barbarian continued to punch. A translucent blood energy fist imprint blasted an observation point on Sunset Cliff, destroying the pillbox as well. "Stop it." In the distance, martial artists in the top ranks soared into the sky. Saber energy, sword energy, spear shadows, giant axes and all kinds of martial art true intent released their might and attacked the burly barbarian. Swish! 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 Cannonballs also poured out crazily towards the other party. However, boom boom boom. This burly barbarian stepped around in the air and punched out again and again, shattering all the attacks. Even the martial artists in the top ranks in the air could not withstand the shockwave. They either exploded on the spot or fell to the ground with severe injuries. As for the shells that flew over, they exploded in the air one by one before they got close and turned into nothingness. Humph! With a low yell, the burly barbarian's flaming eyes swept across all the observation points and shells at the top of Sunset Cliff. Killing intent condensed on its body as it released its blood energy fist imprint again. Boom! A terrifying force tore through the air, stirring up ripples in the air and creating a clear passageway. "Everyone, retreat!" Lu Rinqi's pupils constricted as he roared loudly. As soon as he finished speaking, he mobilized all the strength in his body and released a punch to meet the attack. Fu Sainan and Fan Badong did the same. They mobilized all their strength and gathered with Lu Rinqi, preparing to resist the blood energy fist imprint head-on. Transcendent grade. The burly barbarian was in the transcendent grade. They never expected Fan Butong's casual remark to come true so quickly. The barbarians had actually dispatched a transcendent grade expert to attack Sunset Cliff. Could a peak first-grade martial artist withstand a punch from a transcendent grade barbarian? No idea. Lu Rinqi, Fu Sainan, and Fan Badong were all unaware. They only knew that if they did not take the blow head-on, everyone else would die when the punch landed on the temporary command center. Few of the commanders and martial artists in the top ranks assisting in this battle could escape. If these people died, how could they command the subsequent battles? With the invasion of the transcendent grade barbarians, even if they died, they had to spread the news to the backlands. Who? Strong winds howled and swept through the sky. Lu Rinqi, Fu Sainan, and Fan Badong could not hear anything else. In their vision, there was only the constantly enlarging blood energy fist imprint. Boom! A loud bang reverberated through the air. The shockwave swept through the mountains of Sunset Cliff, sending debris flying. Lu Rinqi, Fu Sainan, and Fan Badong were also sent flying backward by the impact. Not dead. Not dead. Lu Rinqi, who was flying backward, suddenly came to his senses. He stared at his shrunken vision with wide eyes. The same went for Fu Sainan and Fan Badong. They had thought that they were doomed to die from this strike. Unexpectedly, someone had blocked the blood energy fist imprint of a transcendent grade barbarian for them. As they were sent flying, the three of them saw a figure who was also not short. His entire body was emitting white light and he had a pair of wings on his back. He charged towards the transcendent grade barbarian and became engaged in a fight with it. In their vision, the two figures exchanged blows. Their moves were savage and contained terrifying power. From the very beginning, they were in a heated battle. Among them, the winged figure that took the attack for them was extremely fast. The wings. Wait, wings. He's not human. Lu Rinqi, who had stopped moving, widened his eyes in shock. I'm afraid he's really not human. Fu Sainan was equally shocked and filled with disbelief. A person with wings. He's part of the legendary winged ones. The legendary winged ones. Fan Badong took a deep breath and said in shock, this race really exists. Moreover, he seems to be helping us. Not seems, he is already helping us. Lu Rinqi took a deep breath to calm himself down and said in a low voice, no matter what's going on with this transcendent grade winged one, it's a fact that he saved us. A transcendent grade barbarian has taken action. We have to send this information to the backlands and get the cabinet to get the martial sage here. Yes. The transcendent grade is something that only the transcendent grade can deal with. Fan Badong nodded hurriedly. I'll send the news now. Wait. Lu Rinqi suddenly thought of something and said, not only must we invite our own martial sage, but also the martial sages of the Guang nation and the Jing nation. A barbarian invasion is the common enemy of all human dynasties. Of course. Fan Badong nodded. Just as he was about to fly out. Boom! A shocking bang broke through space, and cracks appeared. Although they quickly recovered, the transcendent grade barbarian and winged one who were fighting were both struck by each other's attacks and quickly retreated. Then, as he retreated, the transcendent grade winged one suddenly released a ray of light that tore through space and struck the transcendent grade barbarian who could not dodge in time. Under the gaze of Fan Badong, Lu Rinqi, Fu Sainan, and the other martial artists in the top ranks, the latter's huge body immediately melted like snow under the hot sun. It died extremely quickly, fiercely, and strangely. In a few breaths, it disappeared from the world. Lu Rinxi, Fu Sainan, Fan Budong, and the others were dumbfounded. Is the transcendent grade winged one actually that powerful? Killing a transcendent grade barbarian with one ultimate move? How many times can such an ultimate move be released? If. Pelch. In the air above the wilderness, a strange sound suddenly attracted everyone's attention. A crack appeared in the air and a terrifying barbarian who was 10 meters tall walked out. As soon as the other party appeared, its bell-like eyes swept across the winged one. Its unnatural human language resounded through the sky and ground, echoing in everyone's ears. Since when did the king of the winged ones become a thug for the human race? Buzz. Buzz. The ears of Lu Rinxi, Fu Sainan, Fan Budong, and the others were ringing non-stop. It was as if a huge drum was beating non-stop beside their ears. Looking up, there was no peace in the space around the tall barbarian. It was filled with ripples, rolling and twisting, and vortexes spinning. Barbarian God. Barbarian God. This terrifying barbarian who was 10 meters tall was not an ordinary transcendent grade expert. Instead, it was a barbarian god comparable to the human's primordial spirit realm. There were only a few barbarian gods in the barbarian race, but one had appeared before their eyes. Now that the barbarian god, who was in the primordial spirit realm, had appeared, what could they do? What would they fight it with? Even if Kong Xian, the kingdom-defending martial sage, were here, he would only be courting death. At this thought, Lu Rinxi, Fu Sainan, and Fan Budong's faces turned pale, and their eyes were filled with despair. The sky and ground were dead silent. Sensing that the space around him had been sealed, Sha Lu's pupils constricted in shock. Barbarian god? The barbarians actually mobilized a barbarian god? What did the humans do to lure the barbarian god out? Sha Lu was puzzled, wary, aggrieved, and helpless. He could contend against ordinary transcendent grade barbarians, but how could he resist a barbarian god whose strength was comparable to the primordial spirit realm? The ultimate move earlier was useful against ordinary transcendent grade barbarians, but it was unrealistic to think of killing a barbarian god with it. Moreover, this 10-meter-tall barbarian god would not foolishly stand still and allow him to kill it. It was very, very difficult to kill barbarians who specially cultivated the physical body to reach the level of a barbarian god. In any case, Sha Lu could not do it. What should I do? Silence. Faced with the barbarian god's stiff question, all Sha Lu could do was remain silent. Inwardly, he kept sending messages to Su Jingxing. A ruler-subject contract could also allow the transmission of information through the mind. In reality, there was no need for Sha Lu to deliver the news. Su Jingxing's main body on the Seven Luminaries planet and his essence soul in the Void World already knew about the appearance of the barbarian god. This was because Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger was right in the bumpy wilderness in front of Sunset Cliff. Previously, when the barbarians rushed out of the mountain range and were washed by the shells, Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger, which had shrunk into a small mass, had danced around under the influence of the shockwave and extracted cards. When the blood doppelganger saw the barbarian god appear, it was also quickly thinking about how to deal with it. Firstly, excluding Su Jingxing's main body, his main body far away on the Seven Luminaries planet could not attend to anything on Earthstar. If his main body was here, he could kill all 5 barbarian gods, let alone one. Secondly, Su Jingxing's essence soul could not descend from the void world because the evil energy in its mind had not been completely neutralized and cleansed. If it left the void world without completing the cleansing to deal with the barbarian god, it could at most only be an equal match. Even that had to be achieved using the Red Dragon's reverse scale. As for other defenses, be it the Thunder Dragon bone armor or the essence soul body, none of them could withstand the power of the barbarian god. The problem was that if it used the red dragon's reverse scale again, the evil energy that already existed in the essence soul's mind would definitely erupt uncontrollably. Under such circumstances, Su Jingxing's essence soul might even lose control and become a killing machine, let alone kill the barbarian god. Therefore, after much thought, only Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger could go on stage. The pressure of the barbarian god could suppress everyone, including Sha Lu, but it was ineffective against the blood doppelganger. Given the uniqueness of the blood doppelganger, even if it was blown up, Su Jingxing wouldn't die. Of course, the blood doppelganger's appearance was more of stalling for time. To buy time for the essence soul to neutralize the evil energy. With this in mind, on the ground in the wilderness, Su Jingxing controlled his blood doppelganger to transform back into human form. The beast-refining blood king was here. Circulating its blood energy, it struck out at the barbarian god in the sky. Firmament Nirvana Palm. In this divine art, true essence, pure physical strength, blood energy, internal force, soul power, and so on could be consumed to unleash its might. What could unleash the most powerful force was naturally spiritual essence. The blood energy of the blood doppelganger was inferior to spiritual essence, but it was not inferior to true essence. At this moment, this palm strike also stirred up the air. Everywhere it passed, cracks appeared in space. The barbarian god in the air was scanning everyone and their arrangements on Sunset Cliff with a superior gaze. It sensed this strike from the blood doppelganger immediately and turned to look down at the ground. The audacity! Unnatural human language boomed in the air. The red eyes of the 10-meter-tall barbarian god narrowed. A beam of light shot out to meet the Nirvana palm. Swish! Boom! One above and one below, the two forces collided, producing a terrifying shockwave that swept in all directions and stirred up astral winds. What made everyone's eyes widen was that in the face of the barbarian god's counterattack, not only did the blood-colored giant palm imprint not dissipate, after half of its might was worn off, the remaining force actually continued to charge towards the barbarian god. Bang! A resounding bang reverberated through the sky. Cracks with a bloody red glow appeared on the barbarian god's 10-meter-tall body as it took 3 steps back. Although it was only 3 steps, it left everyone dumbfounded. A barbarian god. Not only did the unknown martial artist on the ground break the barbarian god's attack with a single palm strike, he even forced the barbarian god to take 3 steps back. What kind of power can make the barbarian god retreat? What realm is this unknown martial artist in? First grade? Transcendent grade? Silence. The sky and ground fell into dead silence again. Swish. Swish. In the silence, a ray of iridescent light suddenly shot out, tearing through space and appearing in front of Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger. It was too fast. Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger was already struck when it sensed the attack. The blood doppelganger exploded on the spot, turning into liquid that splattered all over the ground. Sigh. On the Sunset Cliff, Lu Renshi, Fu Sainan, Fan Budong, and the others, who were watching from afar, sighed sadly when they saw this scene. On the other hand, Sha Lu sensed a different aura. His pupils constricted as he stared at the liquid on the ground. Yes, liquid. Wouldn't it be a rain of flesh and blood when a person explodes? Why is there only liquid blood and no minced flesh? Could it be? Swoosh! Under Sha Lu's gaze, Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger condensed into a human body again and struck out at the barbarian god who had retracted his gaze. This time, the barbarian god sensed it in advance. With a slap of its hand, a dense blood palm imprint slammed down fiercely. The 2 palm imprints collided in midair and both dissipated into nothingness. The surging shockwave shattered the energy and lingered in the air. Interesting. The barbarian god stared at the blood doppelganger, its eyes flickering with a strange light. What thing are you? You can actually execute the ultimate technique of the human race. You are the one who's a thing. Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger controlled its blood energy to vibrate and simulate a hoarse and dull voice that resounded through the sky and ground. I'm your granduncle. I can execute everything. Do you have a problem with that? Sha Lu was speechless. Lu Rinxi, Fan Butong, Fu Sainan, and the others were also speechless. Good cursing. How satisfying. But what to do after that? Even though Sha Lu, Lu Rinxi, and Fan Butong were surprised by the structure of Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger, it was still very, very difficult to erase the existence of the barbarian god. The barbarian god also laughed in extreme anger. What a sharp-tongued little thing. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. Boom boom boom. A few bloody palm imprints descended from the sky. Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger exploded again and splattered all over the ground. But soon, Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger took on human form again and cursed towards the air. Be ****, you're terrible at this. You're terrible at this. Terrible. Blee. The dull voice echoed in the air. At this moment, everyone, including the barbarians, gaped at the voice with blank expressions. As the leader of the winged ones, Sha Lu opened his eyes wide and stared at the blood doppelganger, wanting to understand how it was revived. It was beaten into a mess of liquid, but it could instantly regenerate. What kind of ability was this? Or divine power? Rebirth with a drop of blood? A blinding glow shot out from Sha Lu's eyes. Similar to Sha Lu was the barbarian god. Even though being cursed at by Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger made the barbarian god furious, what interested the barbarian god more was the blood doppelganger's ability to reconstruct its human form. This ability was too similar to the legendary rebirth with a drop of blood. Secondly, the composition of Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger was actually not flesh and blood. Swoosh! Its body flashed. The barbarian god, who was standing in the sky, teleported to the ground and appeared in front of the blood doppelganger. Who? Terrifying blood energy erupted and condensed into a claw imprint, quickly sealing off all the escape routes around the blood doppelganger. But a second before that was completed. Bang! Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger exploded automatically, turning into countless drops of liquid that scattered and shot out at lightning speed. Want to capture me? It won't be that easy. Su Jingxing growled inwardly and controlled the blood doppelganger to move swiftly. Humph. The barbarian god snorted coldly. Buzz. Buzz. Space trembled and ripples appeared. A terrifying pressure covered the area with a radius of thousands of meters in an attempt to intimidate Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger. Unfortunately, it was useless. The blood doppelganger did not stop at all. The dispersed liquid continued to move. At a certain moment, it quickly reconstructed and returned to human form. I said you're terrible, and you really are. With a mocking sneer, Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger self-destructed and turned into liquid again before running away. Sha Lu was speechless. Lu Rinxi, Fan Butong, Fu Sainan, and the others were also at a loss of words. Why did that sound a little despicable? It did not die even after exploding. It reconstructed one moment and dispersed the next. The dignified barbarian god was so angry that white smoke was rising from its head. Good, good, good. Its eyes were red, and its killing intent was almost corporeal. The barbarian god suddenly roared and released overwhelming blood energy that enveloped all the liquid that Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger had dispersed. Then, it imprisoned space and forbade Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger from moving on a large scale. The barbarian god's main body took a step forward towards the blood doppelganger. Not good. The blood doppelganger cried out inwardly. Confining space. This barbarian god actually has such a terrifying ability. Such an ability was already no different from a divine power. However, releasing divine powers did not require consumption, and innate abilities often required motivation. Does the barbarian god consume blood energy, physical strength, or soul power when confining space? The blood doppelganger thought quickly. The suppression can be ignored, but how can one break through such an imprisonment? Seal myself with the heaven sealing staff and add a protective layer? It will work, but it won't be able to last for long. Given the strength of the barbarian god? No. Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger suddenly came to its senses. This doppelganger of his was meant to stall for time. It would hold on for as long as it could. Its goal was not really having a competition of strength with the barbarian god. Su Jingxing's essence soul had already reached the last step of neutralizing the evil energy. As long as it could persevere until the evil energy was cleansed, the blood doppelganger's mission would be completed. With this in mind, the blood doppelganger hurriedly took out the heaven sealing staff from the soul space and propped up an independent space. Crack! Crack! Bang! The outer space collided with the inner space, producing an ear-piercing sound that reverberated through the world. Swish! Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger reconstructed and returned to human form. It stood in the space supported by the heaven sealing staff and looked up at the barbarian god. It did not provoke it anymore. Previously, it had used mocking and sneering to attract the barbarian god's attention and stop it from going for Lu Rinchi and company. Otherwise, given the barbarian god's strength, it could kill all the experts in the top ranks with one strike. Things were different now. It had already successfully angered the barbarian god. Right now, what the barbarian god wanted to kill the most was the blood doppelganger. At this moment, continuing to provoke the barbarian god would only cause it to erupt with even stronger strength and shatter the internal space defense supported by the heaven sealing staff. Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger wanted to rely on this internal space to last until the end of the mission. It did not curse, but the barbarian god shouted coldly and grinned sinisterly. Why are you so quiet now? Aren't you very eloquent? Do you have no choice but to shut up because you realize that you can't take it anymore? Boom! There was a loud bang. As the barbarian god shouted angrily, it retracted its ability to confine space. A blood energy palm imprint descended and struck the defensive barrier raised by the heaven sealing staff. Crack! The translucent barrier immediately cracked and was covered in lines. Boom! The barbarian god slapped down again, and the blood palm imprint shone brightly. Bang! The barrier shattered, and cracks appeared on the heaven sealing staff. Su Jingxing's blood doppelganger quickly put the heaven sealing staff back into the soul space. Then, it chuckled. Your opponent isn't me, it's him. With that, it curled up into a small ball and flew out at lightning speed. At the same time, Su Jingxing's essence soul descended from the sky. Swoosh! White light tore through the air and landed on the ground, revealing the figure. It's the martial sage. Martial Sage Kong is finally here. Not good, what is Martial Sage Kong doing here at this time? Leave quickly. On the top of Sunset Cliff, the crowd was in an uproar and exclamations could be heard everywhere. Lu Rinchi and company also looked grim. Martial Sage Kong shouldn't have come. The barbarians sent the barbarian god here. Martial Sage Kong should have invited Sword Sage Pei over. Fan Butong gritted his teeth and shouted. It's too late to say all this now. Lu Rinchi frowned and said in a low voice, once Martial Sage Kong arrived, the barbarian god discovered him immediately. It's too late for Martial Sage Kong to leave now. I believe Martial Sage Kong was confident, that's why he came. Fu Sainan thought for a moment and said, we've never been to the Void World, so we don't know the details. However, according to rumors, Martial Sage Kong can see everything that happens here below in the Void World. In other words, he already knew once the barbarian god appeared. Since he knew that the barbarian god is here, and still came down, it means that he is confident of dealing with him. Is that so? Fan Butong's eyes widened in puzzlement. Well, Lu Rinxi pondered with a frown. That's it can't be wrong. Fu Sainan clenched her fists and concluded through gritted teeth. Some of the others panicked, some despaired, and some were indignant. The only thing they did not expect was that Su Jingxing was already there long ago. Only Fu Sainan was half right. Su Jingxing had long known that the barbarian god had appeared. To really look at it according to Unation's corresponding territory in the Void World, the area outside Sunset Cliff could not be covered at all. In other words, Su Jingxing's essence soul could not see the situation outside Sunset Cliff from the Void World. My opponent is you? On the ground, the barbarian god sensed the commotion and gave up on chasing after the blood doppelganger. It turned to look at the essence soul with a mocking gaze. A mere newly advanced human in the transcendent grade is worthy of being my match. The barbarian god glanced at Su Jingxing's essence soul in the thunder dragon bone armor and sneered. You're the new martial sage of the Unation, Kong Xian, right? Tell me, how do you want to deal with me? Why should I deal with you? The essence soul stepped into the air and walked towards the barbarian god. The barbarian god raised its eyebrows. Interesting. My subjects have invaded the Unation. As the kingdom defending martial sage of the Unation, aren't you going to stop them? Or are you going to let us enter the Unation at will? Of course not. Su Jingxing's essence soul continued to approach the barbarian god. I'm just curious. It has been nearly 100 years since the humans and barbarians fought. Why did you invade the Unation this time? Why? The barbarian god shouted coldly, you have the cheek to ask why. I really don't know. Su Jingxing's essence soul replied indifferently, as far as I know, over the past 100 years, the citizens of the Unation have never entered the boundless mountain range, let alone killed a single barbarian. Yet, you guys left the mountain range and invaded us. Why? Ha ha ha. The barbarian god laughed out loud. What a good reason. The attitudes of you humans are indeed extraordinarily ugly. You dare to do something but do not dare to admit it. Calling you people despicable would be praising you. Your Excellency. Su Jingxing's essence soul raised its voice slightly. I really don't know why you invaded. If you can share in detail, I'm happy to cooperate and provide an explanation. The humans and barbarians have already stopped fighting for 100 years. If possible, I hope this period of time can be extended. After all, regardless of whether it's you barbarians or us humans, as long as there's a war, people will die. It's never a good thing to have people die. If you can live, why should you die? Ha ha ha. The barbarian god laughed again. You're very good with words. You're even better at talking than that little thing of unknown origin. In terms of bickering, you humans are indeed all geniuses. Us barbarians are far inferior. Su Jingxing's essence soul frowned and continued to move closer. These words were not just empty talk. He really wanted to understand how the Xianin sect had lured the barbarians to invade the Unation. Such that one of the 5 barbarian gods had been mobilized. Kong Xian, is it? I don't want to hear your nonsense. The smile on the barbarian god's face slowly disappeared, and crazy killing intent shot out from its scarlet eyes. Speaking to a shameless and disgusting person like you is a waste of time. Boom! The air vibrated. A terrifying pressure was released and swept through the sky and ground, descending on Su Jingxing's essence soul. The barbarian god opened its hands and charged out with a roar with surging blood energy that seemed endless. Its target was still Su Jingxing's essence soul. At this moment, Su Jingxing's essence soul was still more than 50 meters away from the barbarian god. This distance was enough. The barbarian god attacked in anger. The essence soul's eyes lit up. At the same time, it flashed and moved, pouncing towards the barbarian god. It covered a distance of more than 50 meters in an instant. Buzz. Space shook. Boom. Overwhelming blood energy struck the red dragon reverse scale that had manifested and burst out with a loud bang. Roar. A dragon's roar came from the essence soul the next second. More accurately, it came from the red dragon reverse scale. The heavenly might of a true dragon. With a final sprint, Su Jingxing's essence soul that was within 5 meters of the barbarian god activated the red dragon reverse scale and released this furious roar from a true dragon, as well as a suppression on the soul of a terrifying lifeform at an extremely high level. Even though this staggering suppression only lasted 30 seconds, it was enough. The barbarian god was indeed powerful on Earth Star, comparable to the primordial spirit realm. However, in the universe, it was just a child who had just started. Faced with the terrifying power of the heavenly might of a true dragon that could suppress it on the soul level, in less than 3 seconds, the barbarian god's soul consciousness was completely shattered and dissipated into nothingness. Swish. Sword light bloomed. Su Jingxing's essence soul took this opportunity to bring out the thunderbolt sword. It circulated the energy in the sword and unleashed its strongest killing power to slash at the barbarian god's neck. Pelch. It only paused for a moment before the thunderbolt sword that was wrapped in special heavenly lightning arc successfully chopped off the barbarian god's head. To guard against the barbarian god having special abilities that would lead to resurrection, Su Jingxing's essence soul controlled the thunderbolt sword and struck the separated head of the barbarian god with several bolts of lightning. It only stopped and it was reduced to countless pieces that scattered in the air. Card +1. Only then did the headless barbarian god's body sway and fall forward. It crashed to the ground with a dull thud that spread far and wide. The sky and ground were also silent. Dead. The barbarian god is dead. The barbarian god, whose strength was comparable to the primordial spirit realm, died just like that. In the eyes of Lu Rinxi and the others, as the barbarian god and Kong Xian were speaking, the barbarian god suddenly attacked. Not only did martial sage Kong not dodge, he even pounced towards the barbarian god at lightning speed. Then, the attack released by the barbarian god was blocked by martial sage Kong. The martial sage slashed off the barbarian god's head with a backhand strike and released lightning and thunder to shatter it into pieces. The entire process happened quickly and ended equally quickly. Before anyone could react, the barbarian god was dead. The great martial sage Kong Xian had killed the barbarian god like he was killing chickens and ducks. Relaxed, charming, and carefree. As a result, Lu Rinxi, Fan Badong, and the others were dumbfounded. Their eyes were wide as they stared fixedly at the headless body of the barbarian god and the sword-wielding martial sage Kong. They fell into a long period of shock, unable to extricate themselves. Of everyone, only Sha Lu felt a fear that came from the soul when Su Jingxing activated the red dragon's reverse scale and released the might of a true dragon. At that moment, Sha Lu seemed to have seen an evil beast from ancient times staring at him covetously, wanting to swallow him in one bite. However, he could not move even half an inch. All he could do was lie on the ground and tremble as it was devoured and chewed on. What kind of power is this? What kind of power is this? Sha Lu, who came to his senses with a pale face, could not stop his chest from heaving. For the first time, he looked at Su Jingxing's essence soul with a gaze full of reverence. Sha Lu felt fear from the bottom of his heart towards the essence soul which possessed such might. He had never thought that this master he had helplessly submitted to would be so powerful. Woo-hoo! Exclamations sounded. The others who were silent and shocked finally came to their senses. In an instant, everyone, from the great general to the ordinary soldiers, was cheering. The martial sage is mighty. The martial sage is domineering. Martial sage Kong is invincible. Shouts. Cheers. Excitement. Hot blood surged, and their bodies were so excited that their souls were trembling. Barbarian god, O barbarian god! It was unknown what realm the barbarian god was in, but they were cheering for the sake of cheering for the martial sage. Those who knew what kind of existence the barbarian god was cheered even more sincerely for the martial sage, Kong Xian, from the bottom of their hearts. A top expert in the world, one of the only 5 experts in the barbarian race, had been killed by Kong Xian with a single strike. What did this result mean? This meant that Kong Xian, martial sage Kong, was already comparable to a primordial spirit. Previously, the eastern continent only had one primordial spirit, Jing Nation's Pei Donglai, sword sage Pei. Overseas, it was Xiahou Chuanwu. But from today onwards, there would be one more person, the Yu Nation's Kong Xian. Quick, send a message to the marshal and the prime minister. In mid-air, Lu Renshi looked at the barbarian army that was fleeing in a sorry state in the forest behind the wilderness. His voice trembled as he spoke excitedly. Yes, yes. Fan Butong's body was trembling. He pulled out his walkie-talkie and gave the order. Amidst the cheers, the news of Kong Xian, martial sage Kong, killing the barbarian god was spread. Golden Sparrow Mountain Basin. The supreme commander, Xiao Renwo, was holding down the fort in the military camp on behalf of Dongfang Pochu and keeping an eye on the Yu Nation and the original New Chu Nation. He watched the movements in the countries on the left and right to prevent future chaos. Suddenly, hurried footsteps sounded. A military officer rushed to the entrance of the tent and shouted excitedly, "Marshal, great victory! Great victory for Sunset Cliff! Martial Sage Kong killed the barbarian god with his sword. The barbarian army has retreated." Swish! Xiao Renwo, who was resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes and stared at the officer. "What did you say?" "Martial Sage Kong killed the barbarian god." "That's right, Marshal. Martial Sage Kong is amazing. He single-handedly killed the barbarian god and forced back the barbarian army." The officer said excitedly. "I know that the barbarian army has been beaten back. I'm asking about Martial Sage Kong. Are you sure the target he killed is the barbarian god and not another transcendent grade barbarian?" Xiao Renwo's face was solemn. "Why yes." The officer was slightly stunned, not understanding the difference between the two. Great General Lu Renshi and Great General Fan Batong were both present. They witnessed with their own eyes that Martial Sage Kong killed a barbarian god. "Oh right." Suddenly, the officer thought of something and continued, "Another transcendent grade barbarian was also present. Before the barbarian god appeared, it almost destroyed the equipment on Sunset Cliff. However, this transcendent grade barbarian was killed by an unknown expert. The barbarian god only appeared after the transcendent grade barbarian died. Then, it was killed by Martial Sage Kong." Xiao Renwo remained silent. Lu Renshi and Fan Batong had witnessed it with their own eyes, which meant that the information was correct. In other words, the great Martial Sage Kong of the Yu Nation had really killed a barbarian god whose strength was comparable to the primordial spirit realm. There were a total of 5 barbarian gods, but only 4 were left now. Xiao Renwo was silent, but his expression was especially interesting. Yu Nation's capital. Qingtian City. In the 2 command centers, Guanzhonghua, Luo Xiangong, Luo Shan, and the others also received the news. They were equally agitated. Barbarian god, the barbarians actually mobilized a barbarian god. In the end, this barbarian god was killed by Martial Sage Kong. Guan Zhonghua's voice trembled as his body shook. This is amazing. This is amazing. This is wonderful." Luo Xiangong clenched his fists and swung them in the air. "Ha ha ha!" Luo Shan and the others laughed out loud in excitement. The others also cheered and shouted Kong Xian's name. "Quick, tell the entire country the great news. Let all the citizens know that our martial sage has won." Hall Master Fu Ning's face flushed red as he clapped and shouted. Yes, inform the entire country. Immediately. Guan Zhonghua waved his hand and shouted. Yes. 10 minutes later. On New U Nation's television, internet, radio stations, and outdoor billboards, news of the great victory at Sunset Cliff was announced. Immediately, the entire nation was in an uproar. The martial sage is mighty. Martial sage Kong is too handsome. Long live the martial sage. Ha ha ha, like I said, how could a mere barbarian invasion be a match for the U Nation? See this? Once a martial sage makes a move, even a barbarian god will be killed with a single strike. What level is a barbarian god at? Why have I never heard of it? Didn't the announcement state that the barbarian god is a top existence in the transcendent grade, one of the strongest experts in the world? TSS. In that case, our martial sage is also among the strongest experts in the world now. Needless to say, almost 5 billion people in the U Nation and the ex-New Chu Nation were shouting and cheering excitedly. The panic caused by the internet invasion and the barbarian invasion instantly dissipated. Everyone in the country was sincerely cheering for Kong Xian, the martial sage. Without needing Su Jingxing's essence soul to drive it, the kingdom-defending Jade Seal automatically condensed the Sage Origin fruit. Sage Origin fruits were quickly produced. Jing Nation. Gong Juanlian had just finished briefing the president of the Jing Nation and was preparing to set off for the U Nation to help with the barbarian invasion. Unexpectedly, an urgent call came in at this moment. The president of the Jing Nation picked up the call. On speaker mode, he heard the news of the U Nation's martial sage killing the barbarian god and forcing the barbarians back. For a time, even Gong Juanlian was dumbfounded, let alone the president of the Jing Nation. Are you serious? Martial sage Kong Xian of the U Nation killed a barbarian god and not a transcendent grade barbarian? After a while, Gong Juanlian came back to her senses and questioned through gritted teeth. It's true. The U Nation's cabinet has announced it to the world. Everyone on Sunset Cliff saw it with their own eyes. The person on the other end of the line was also extremely excited. Who? Gong Juanlian exhaled, unable to conceal the shock on her face as she murmured. How is this possible? How did he do it? Bang! Zheng Nation. Luo Ao suddenly broke an exquisite porcelain bottle. With a hideous expression, he roared, impossible. How could that Kong fellow kill a barbarian god? Impossible. Fake, it must be fake. The U Nation must have deliberately spread fake news to boost morale. Kill a barbarian god? Just with Kong Xian? There's no doubt that the U Nation is behind this. That Kong fellow is putting on a show. Luo Ao's eyes were spitting fire, and his expression was extremely ugly. He refused to believe it. He simply refused to believe it. Could Kong Xian kill a barbarian god? The barbarian god was a powerful existence comparable to the primordial spirit realm. Only his master, Sword Sage Pei, had killed one. Kong Xian, a newly advanced transcendent grade, dreamed of killing one. Impossible. Hong Nation. Yu Nation. Guang Nation. Liang Nation. Su Nation. The news spread throughout the entire eastern continent at an extremely fast speed. In less than half an hour, everyone learned that the martial sage of the U Nation, Kong Xian, had killed a barbarian god, and forced back the army of 1 million barbarians. The barbarians had fled back to the boundless mountain range in a sorry state. An hour later, the western continent and factions out at sea also received the news. Therefore, the entire Earth star was in an uproar. Crescent Island. Seaside Villa. Ji Haixing and Tao Wanru stared at each other, their expressions changing. He descended from the sky and killed the barbarian god with one strike. Forced back an army of 1 million barbarians without saying a word. This Kong Xian is actually a primordial spirit? Shock, astonishment, confusion, and palpitation filled Ji Haixing and Tao Wanru's eyes. All kinds of emotions swiftly passed. After a long time, the two of them closed their eyes and exhaled. They leaned against the sofa, their auras surging violently. Unexpected, really unexpected, Ji Haixing murmured. Yeah, how long has it been since Kong Xian advanced to the transcendent grade? Wait. Suddenly, Tao Wanru thought of something and said in surprise, I'm afraid all of us have thought wrongly and subconsciously entered a subjective judgment. What do you mean? Ji Haixing frowned as he opened his eyes and looked at Tao Wanru. Just Kong Xian. We only know that he replaced Xia Tsangxuan and became the Yu Nation's martial sage not long ago, but no one knows what Kong Xian's identity, realm, or origin was before that. Tao Wanru's eyes shone. Are you saying that Kong Xian was already in the transcendent grade before he became the martial sage of the Yu Nation? And he was in an advanced class of the soul fixation realm or even the soul formation realm? Ji Haixing guessed. What else? Tao Wanru shrugged. Only this explanation can perfectly explain why Kong Xian advanced to the primordial spirit realm so quickly. He even killed a barbarian god, not to mention destroying the Xianin sect. Ji Haixing remained silent. Yet the glint in his eyes showed that he agreed with Tao Wanru's statement. The martial sage of the Yu Nation, Kong Xian, had long reached the soul formation realm. On an unknown island. Whoosh! Whoosh! On the shore where the stone walls stood, waves of seawater surged ashore, hitting the rocks and creating splashes. On a cliff 300 meters away from the shore, Xiahou Chuanwu stood in the air and brandished a brush as tall as a person to quickly draw on the smooth rock wall. The aura around him surged and emitted wisps of faint light that met the sea like pearls. Suddenly. Eldest senior brother, there's news from the eastern continent. Another person has achieved the primordial spirit. The news has spread throughout the world. An old man with snow-white hair stepped on the air and flew over from behind the cliff. He shouted as he flew. Eldest senior brother, guess who this person is? What's his name? The old man winked and grinned at Xiahou Chuanwu. Xiahou Chuanwu ignored him and continued to paint on the cliff. When he was done with the drawing of a sunset over the sea that was hundreds of meters tall, he put away his brush, took a few steps back, and studied it in satisfaction. All right, stop being narcissistic. I know that your paintings are full of artistic conception and have a lingering charm. Seeing this, the old man couldn't help but roll his eyes. The new primordial spirit expert in the eastern continent is called Kong Xian. He's the kingdom defending martial sage of the Yu Nation. It's said that it's been less than a year since he advanced to the transcendent grade. He completed the transformation of his essence soul to the primordial spirit and killed a barbarian god in front of countless people. As you said, it's hearsay. Xiahou Chuanwu said calmly, a 1-year essence soul. Do you think that's possible? Of course not, but he did kill the barbarian god. The old man rubbed his chin with a yearning expression. Killing the barbarian god with one strike is definitely the strength of the primordial spirit realm. Perhaps. Xiahou Chuanwu did not insist. He chuckled and said, regardless of whether this Kong Xian is a primordial spirit or not, it has nothing to do with me. Instead, that Pei fellow is probably very happy. That's right. When the old man heard this, he said strangely, given Sword Sage Pei's character, if someone advances to the primordial spirit realm, he will definitely be interested and come to challenge him. In that case, Kong Xian will have a headache now. Xiahou Chuanwu was silent, his eyes flashing. Oh right. Suddenly, the old man thought of something and said, I almost forgot that there's something else that's also related to this martial sage Kong Xian. You know about the Xianin sect, right? Isn't that obvious? Xiahou Chuanwu rolled his eyes at the old man in annoyance. He. The old man scratched his head and said something shocking. Eldest senior brother, you would never have expected this. The Xianin sect is gone, completely annihilated. The murderer is Kong Xian. Xiahou Chuanwu raised his eyebrows and asked in a deep voice, when did this happen? Also today. The old man grinned. The Yu nation was invaded by the internet and barbarians. As the kingdom defending martial sage, Kong Xian suddenly came to the open seas. He first went to the Crescent Island and killed Tu Anbang's physical body, Tu Zhenglia's essence soul, then went to the Xianin Islands and killed Tu Zhenglai and the Xianin Patriarch. Finally, the entire Xianin Islands was also destroyed by a terrifying force and sank to the bottom of the sea. According to the eyewitnesses, Kong Xian only took 2 trips to destroy the Xianin Islands. He took care of everything in a few minutes. After a pause, the old man lowered his voice and looked at Xiahou Chuanwu. He asked curiously, eldest senior brother, can you destroy the Xianin Islands in a few minutes? Get lost. Yu nation. In the void world territory. As soon as Su Jingxing's essence soul returned, it checked the kingdom defending Jade Seal. In the end, it saw that in just 10 minutes, the kingdom defending Jade Seal had condensed more than 200 sage origin fruits. After killing the barbarian god and forcing the barbarians back, the morale of the entire Yu nation was unprecedentedly high. It was several times higher than when he killed Xiang Qingtian the previous time. The large number of sage origin fruits was expected. The essence soul was currently in the soul formation realm. The increase in soul power had a limited effect on breaking through to the primordial spirit realm. Therefore, it temporarily put away these sage origin fruits as backup. It wasn't just the sage origin fruits. The essence soul had benefited greatly from the invasion of the Yu nation. After destroying the Xianin sect, it extracted 3,402 true energy cards, 7,019 internal force cards, 30 true essence cards, 12 deduction cards, 5 memory cards, 144 skill cards, 1,088 martial arts practice cards, and more than 20,000 essence energy cards, strength enhancement cards, and equipment cards. Just this harvest alone was exciting. Starting from the least, Su Jingxing's essence soul read the 5 memory cards. It realized that they were all contents about the Xianin sect, as well as information about the distribution of relevant forces overseas and the identities of many experts. This information was useful to it, but not by much. Then there was the deduction card. It had to admit that there were many geniuses in the Xianin sect. There were 12 deduction cards, and the one with the most chances was extracted from Tu Zhenglia's essence soul. There were 10 deduction chances, and each had a 70% success rate. Followed by the true essence cards. There were as many as 30 top-ranked experts. Each true essence card contained cultivation ranging between 5 to 15 years. Lastly, the skill cards. Most of the 144 cards were martial arts and secret abilities of the Zuanin sect. What tempted the essence soul the most were the 2 skill cards extracted from Tu Anbang's essence soul and the Xianin Patriarch's essence soul. The former gave the Great Dark Heavenly Yin Finger. It was a 3-star killing type soul skill with complete contents. The latter gave the Supreme Profound Soul Refining Mantra. Su Jingxing's essence soul could not estimate the level of this soul skill. This was because it was incomplete, only a third of its content was available, but it was the core secret of the Xianin Patriarch. The reason was that the Supreme Profound Soul Refining Mantra could temper the primordial spirit and strengthen the divine consciousness. It could cultivate the primordial spirit to the extreme and reach an immortal state. That's right, the Supreme Mystic Soul Refinement focused on the primordial spirit, not the essence soul. Therefore, even though the Xianin Patriarch guarded a treasure mountain, he could not cultivate it. The essence soul had benefited from picking up such a divine art. The Supreme Profound Soul Refining Mantra was to the primordial spirit, what a body-tempering mental cultivation technique was to the human body. Not only would it strengthen the primordial spirit, making it immortal and indestructible, it could also strengthen the divine consciousness. The stronger one's divine consciousness, the more he could do. It was only because Su Jingxing's essence soul had yet to break through to the primordial spirit realm. Otherwise it would immediately unlock the deduction card and complete it. Then, it would cultivate it using the martial arts practice card. There was no one else who had extracted 1088 martial arts practice cards from the Xianin Islands. This meant that thousands of people were being controlled by the Xianin sect. Su Jingxing's essence soul was lacking martial arts practice cards, so this wave of benefits was perfect. The remaining were true energy cards, internal force cards, essence energy cards, strength enhancement cards, and so on. Previously, the blood doppelganger had extracted true energy cards, internal force cards, and true essence cards from the U-Nation's crematorium. It had accumulated a lot of them. Now, Su Jingxing's main body, who was far away on the Seven Luminaries planet, had unlocked all of them and continuously converted them into vast ocean spiritual essence. He raised his spiritual essence cultivation to 760 years. The energy in more than 10,000 cards were eventually converted into vast ocean spiritual essence, only increasing his cultivation by a few decades. It had to be said that it was a little inefficient. Fortunately, Su Jingxing did not rely on these cards to increase his spiritual essence cultivation. To the current Su Jingxing, true energy cards, internal force cards, and true essence cards were just fast food that he occasionally had. They were no longer staple foods. This was the reward for destroying the Xianin sect. There were also cards that extracted the blood doppelganger, took care of the barbarians, and the essence soul killed the barbarian god. There were a total of 4 essence origin cards, 517 bloodline cards, 32,109 mighty strength cards, and 61,833 soul separation cards. And a domain card extracted from the barbarian god after its death. Right, of the 4 essence origin cards, only one was obtained after the death of the transcendent grade barbarian. The other 3 came from the physical bodies of Tu Zhenglai, Tu Anbang, and the Xianin Patriarch. He had expected about 30,000 mighty strength cards, but he was a little surprised that there were more than 60,000 soul separation cards. The 517 bloodline cards were even more unexpected. This was because these bloodline cards all contained a bloodline called the Panguang Battle Blood. Panguang Battle Blood? The bloodline of the barbarians? The essence soul wasn't sure and temporarily put them away. Finally, the essence soul held the new card, the domain card, in its hand and read it carefully. The function card extracted from the barbarian god after his death was definitely not simple. This was indeed the case. After unlocking this domain card, Su Jingxing could obtain a blank domain that belonged to him out of thin air. Although it was a blank domain, it still possessed the power of a domain. The power of a domain was a powerful force that only the divine martial arts system had a certain chance of producing when the primordial spirit reached the cloud ascension realm. That's right, not everyone could condense a domain. However, once possessed, a martial artist would be invincible in the domain. Even against an expert in the life void realm, he would be invincible. Su Jingxing unlocked the domain card he had extracted from the barbarian god and immediately obtained his domain. However, the power of a blank domain was limited. For example, the barbarian god's space-confining domain was Su Jingxing's goal. How could it add other attributes to the blank domain? It pondered over it. In the end, the essence soul had no choice but to give up on thinking about this problem. This was because it had no clue at all. The power of his domain was still far from him. It had not even reached the soul platform realm, let alone the cloud ascension realm. The power of a domain was not something that could be achieved in one step. It was also a step-by-step transformation. Only in a certain realm could one touch it. Su Jingxing's essence soul was only in the soul formation realm and was still far from the cloud ascension realm. If it did not understand domains, how could it add other attributes to its domain? Of course. Nothing was absolute. Perhaps one day, it would suddenly have an idea and accidentally understand what a domain was. For now, it was safer to put away the domain card. Of the two new ultimate techniques, the supreme profound soul refining mantra required one to reach the primordial spirit realm to cultivate it. There was no need to bother with it for now. Su Jingxing's essence soul decisively unlocked the martial arts practice card and began cultivating the complete great dark heavenly yin finger. Swish. 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 In the martial arts practice space, Su Jingxing's consciousness was immersed in the powerful performance of a 3-star battle technique and quickly grasped this martial art. He unlocked a total of 53 martial arts practice cards and spent more than 120 years to advance the great dark heavenly yin finger to the peak of perfection. He had extracted many martial arts practice cards this time. Far away on the 7 luminaries planet, Su Jingxing's main body also cultivated the 3-star battle technique he had obtained previously. One of the Tuahai family's ultimate techniques, Meteor Fist. This combat skill could be executed using spiritual essence, soul power, and physical strength. Of course, Su Jingxing only learned about spiritual essence after comprehending the mysteries of the Meteor Fist. In the eyes of others, the true strength of the Meteor Fist was that it could draw on the power of the stars to fight. When this battle technique was cultivated to the extreme, it could sink a continent. That was the ultimate Meteor Fist. It could guide the boundless power of the stars for its own use. However, the power of the stars could not be born so easily. Unless it was in space, it was barely easy to guide the power of the stars. Otherwise, on the ground, only when astronomical phenomena such as planetary alignment occurred would the power of the stars condense and be guided and controlled. As such, unless one reached a certain realm, the might of the Meteor Fist could not be fully unleashed. However, this problem was no longer a problem in the hands of Su Jingxing's main body. The power of spiritual essence was not inferior to the power of the stars. Using spiritual essence to execute the Meteor Fist could also reach the ultimate. Therefore, Su Jingxing's main body did not hesitate to unlock the martial arts practice cards and quickly master the Meteor Fist. Swish. 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 In the martial arts practice space, Su Jingxing's main body kept changing his body and quickly grasped the true meaning of the Meteor Fist. He used 63 cards and more than 140 years to raise this 3-star battle technique to the peak of perfection. The Meteor Fist was settled. Next was the Firmament Nirvana Palm. Su Jingxing had only mastered this spiritual martial art to the advanced level. At that time, it took 180 years of practice time. Now, he continued to improve. He unlocked the martial arts practice cards and quickly advanced himself in the martial arts practice space. He used more than 100 martial arts practice cards and spent 370 years to reach perfection. Without stopping, he continued to unlock more martial arts practice cards. Another 200 cards and nearly 1,000 years of practice time were used to raise his realm to the peak of perfection. Putting aside the difficulty of cultivating a 5-star battle technique, just the duration required to cultivate it was very long. It was not something that a 3-star battle technique could compare to. Su Jingxing had obtained more than 1,000 martial arts practice cards this time, but if he used them with such force, they wouldn't last long. Su Jingxing had to use the remaining 500 martial arts practice cards sparingly. Who knew when the next martial arts practice card would be extracted? However, on Earth Star, Su Jingxing's essence soul thought for a moment and took out a dozen more martial arts practice cards. It unlocked them to increase its mastery of Sword Eyes. Although Sword Eyes was only comparable to a 1-star battle technique, this soul skill was not only convenient to use, but also very cool. It could kill his target with a sweep of its eyes and a glare. That was quite cool. Cough cough. Originally, Sword Eyes was at the advanced level. It did not take much time to continue improving. After using up more than 10 martial arts practice cards, he successfully stepped into the peak of perfection. From then on, other than the supreme profound soul refining mantra and the divine light projection technique, the other soul skills and combat skills it mastered had all reached the peak of perfection. Su Jingxing's essence, soul and main body sensed them one by one. They were more confident in any future battles. For example, the next time it encountered the barbarian god, Su Jingxing's essence soul was confident that it could use the Tiangang demon suppression hand and the great dark heavenly yin finger to compete against the barbarian god. With the red dragon reverse scale in hand, the barbarian god suppression was ineffective against the essence soul. Without the suppression on the soul level, it was not impossible for the soul formation realm to resist the power of the barbarian god. Another example was the firmament nirvana palm. At the peak of perfection, Su Jingxing was confident that when he faced a third realm devil general again, he would only need to spend 100 years, or even less than 100 years of spiritual essence cultivation to quickly kill it. This was the power of reaching a high level in the mastery of an ultimate technique. Killing a third realm devil general with one palm strike and using the soul formation realm to resist the primordial spirit was no longer a dream. This time, when the Yu nation was invaded, Su Jingxing's essence soul had traveled tens of thousands of miles and attacked consecutively. Quite a lot of information about it was exposed, but it was basically within its grasp. Moreover, it was very necessary. After the Yu nation annexed the new Chu nation, Su Jingxing had a feeling that sooner or later, trouble would come knocking on his door. Nearly 5 billion citizens. This number was really enviable. However, Su Jingxing was a newly advanced martial sage and his strength was limited. Therefore, even without the Xianin sect, there would still be factions like the Xianming sect and the Xianxia sect. Therefore, Su Jingxing steeled his heart and destroyed the entire Xianin sect. Make an example out of them for everyone on Earth Star. If they wanted to kill and replace him, they would have to ask themselves if they have the strength and confidence. Especially when the barbarian god appeared, Su Jingxing used the red dragon reverse scale to kill it and even made himself appear to be in the primordial spirit realm. So far, how many primordial spirits did Earth Star have? Kong Xian was suspected to be a primordial spirit. Su Jingxing wanted to see who dared to have designs on him again. Wait. Suddenly, Su Jingxing's essence soul thought of something and its expression changed slightly. It seems like someone really dares to. Pei Donglai, Sword Sage Pei, will this challenge fanatic come knocking on my door? Little Demon World. On a mountain peak that towered into the clouds. Luo Ao's essence soul glowed as it forced back the approaching demonic energy. It looked at the sky with a complicated expression. Across the horizon, a figure moved quickly, wanting to get close to a branch, but it was repeatedly repelled by an invisible force. This figure was none other than the #1 expert in the world who had not left since he entered the Little Demon World, Sword Sage Pei, Pei Donglai. After Su Jingxing dealt with the 3 ancient demons and a large number of half-demon overlords, the threat in the Little Demon World was greatly reduced. Even Luo Ao could ignore all the demonic creatures, let alone Sword Sage Pei. Just like Su Jingxing back then, the Little Demon World that was not a big threat was quickly used as a training ground by Luo Ao. A portion of the Jing nation's swordsmen and army had already entered. People from the Su, Wei, Shui and Liang dynasties also entered. In comparison, Sword Sage Pei's intentions were much purer. He only wanted to figure out what was going on at the top of the sky in the Little Demon World. Of course, even someone as powerful as Sword Sage Pei could not stay at the end of the horizon for long. Luo Ao's essence soul had come this time to wait for Sword Sage Pei to come down and rest. As for Sword Sage Pei's physical body, even as his disciple, Luo Ao did not know where it was. Swoosh! Demonic energy surged as he waited silently. Suddenly, a figure descended from the sky. Greetings, Master. Luo Ao's essence soul bowed and shouted at the descending figure. What's the matter? Pei Donglai did not look at Luo Ao's essence soul. He sat cross-legged on a huge rock and spoke calmly as he recovered his soul power. Master, there is indeed something I need to report to you. Luo Ao's essence soul maintained its bow and said softly, 3 days ago, in order to plot against the U-Nation, the Xianin sect started an internet invasion and a barbarian invasion. In these two incidents, the martial sage of the U-Nation, Kong Xian, took action. He first killed the previous sect master of the Xianin sect, Tu Anbang, then the current sect master, Tu Jinglai. Finally, he killed the Xianin patriarch and destroyed the entire Xianin sect. Pei Donglai did not react. Seeing this, Luo Ao's essence soul went on, after destroying the Xianin sect, Kong Xian rushed to Sunset Cliff and killed the barbarian god who appeared. Barbarian god? Pei Donglai's eyes lit up. Are you sure he killed the barbarian god? Yes, I'm sure, I'm very sure. Luo Ao's essence soul raised its voice slightly. Countless people saw this. Kong Xian killed the barbarian god with one strike. Now, all the countries on Earth Star are guessing that Kong Xian might have already reached the primordial spirit realm. Throughout the entire Earth Star, how many primordial spirits were there among humans? 1 in the eastern continent, Pei Donglai. 1 overseas, Xiaoho Chuanwu. 1 in the western continent. And perhaps 1 in White Emperor City. If Kong Xian advanced to the primordial spirit realm, he would be the 5th. One of the 5 great experts of humanity. Please reading on MYBOX no VL, com. Luo Ao's essence soul felt extremely sour at the thought of this title. What right did Kong Xian have? Why? Luo Ao's essence soul was indignant and unconvinced. However, countless people had witnessed Kong Xian kill the barbarian god with his sword. He had no choice but to believe it. In particular, the headless body of the barbarian god had been transported back to the U-Nation's capital for viewing. Luo Ao personally went to take a look and realized that it was indeed true. With the concrete truth before him, there was nothing Luo Ao could do no matter how indignant he was. But soon, he thought of Pei Donglai. Having followed Pei Donglai for decades, Luo Ao knew his master the best. Sword Sage Pei was not interested in anything else. Even if the sun in the sky exploded, he would not take it to heart. He would only become interested when experts of the same realm who were extremely powerful appeared and would go forth to challenge them. Pei Donglai's title of Sword Sage was earned through constant challenges. Kong Xian killed the barbarian god and is suspected to be a primordial spirit. Alright, I'll get Master to knock on his door and personally verify it. I'll know if it's true then. Since it's a challenge, casualties will be inevitable. Luo Ao was confident in his master. Even if Kong Xian is really a primordial spirit, he won't be Master's match. Once they fight, it will be great if Kong Xian is injured or killed by Master. Luo Ao's essence soul thought hatefully. As for whether Master will fail, he had never thought about it, nor would he. Kong Xian is suspected to be a primordial spirit. Master, do we need to go to the U-Nation to congratulate him? Luo Ao's essence soul calmed itself down and asked respectfully. According to ancient etiquette, when a person advances from the transcendent grade to the primordial spirit, all the dynasties in the world would go to their door and congratulate him. Yes, of course. Pei Donglai chuckled and said, since this Kong Xian is a primordial spirit, I have to go and spar with him to see if I can gain new insights. I knew it. Luo Ao's essence soul lowered its head and laughed inwardly. Primordial spirit. I'll let you have your primordial spirit. If you want to be the 5th strongest expert in the world, you have to get past Master first. Luo Ao's essence soul sneered inwardly. But. After a pause, Pei Donglai continued, however, before we go to the U-Nation, I still have to go up to the sky for one last attempt. New novels chapters are published N. He looked up at the branches that filled the sky and said solemnly, the branch in the sky is too well protected. Without knowing the key technique, I can't take it out. The smile on Luo Ao's essence soul's face froze. Then, it nodded and said, "Yes, master." Pei Donglai replied calmly, "You don't have to wait here. I'll head to the Unation by myself in 3 days." "Yes." Luo Ao's essence soul bowed and nodded. It growled inwardly. "Kong Xian, I'll let you live freely for 3 more days. Unation. The capital. Su Jingxing's essence soul was listening to Xiao Renwo's investigation report on the barbarian invasion. Suddenly, its heart skipped a beat. It had a bad feeling. Just as it was about to try to deduce, this premonition disappeared without a trace. What's going on? Someone wants to harm me again. Su Jingxing's essence soul was puzzled and refused to believe it. After he killed a barbarian god in front of countless people, there was still someone who wanted to harm him. This was unbelievably stubborn. Su Jingxing's essence soul was also frustrated. But it did not reveal his emotions and continued to listen to the report. As it listened, its frustration was suddenly suppressed and replaced with bewilderment. The reason for the barbarian invasion could not be found. Xiao Renwo mobilized a large number of resources and channels. After spending a few days, he actually couldn't find the final truth. He only knew that people from the Xianin sect had once entered the boundless mountain range. As for what they had done, no one knew. There was no relevant information in the few memory cards that Su Jingxing's essence soul had extracted after destroying the Xianin sect. As for why the barbarians invaded, it had now become a mystery. Before killing the barbarian god had called Su Jingxing's essence soul a shameless villain. This meant that there was more to this matter. But what was the truth? The barbarian god was dead and the other barbarians had escaped. All clues were cut off at once. They couldn't possibly barge into the depths of the boundless mountain range and ask the other barbarian gods, could they? Now that a barbarian god had died, the barbarians were probably very jittery. If the slightest thing went wrong, they would face an intense counterattack. If the remaining 4 barbarian gods were to go crazy together, Su Jingxing's essence soul was not confident of stopping them. Unless the main body returned. 7 Luminaries Planet. Su Jingxing's main body digested the effects of the improved soul skills and battle techniques. Until he was reminded that the soul refining space could be opened now. This was great news. Su Jingxing immediately stopped comprehending and left his residence. He followed the Heart Moon Fox who was leading the way to the center of Yuedang Mountain and stood in front of a pitch-black abyss. "My friend, you're here." At the edge of the cliff, led by Feng Xian, thousands of Heart Moon Foxes stood in 2 rows, looking into the abyss. Seeing Su Jingxing, Feng Xian, who was standing in the air, waved his hand and shouted, "The soul refining space is below. Go down with the 7 of them later. Remember not to resist during the landing. Just slowly descend with the force." "Understood." Su Jingxing nodded and glanced at the other 7 others who would be entering the soul refining space with him. Then, he realized that the sisters, Nian Shuang and Nian Linger, were among them. Su Jingxing took one of the 8 spots. Nian Shuang and Nian Linger each took one of the remaining 7. Having a backer was impressive. Clearly, the reason why Nian Shuang and Nian Linger could go down together was because Feng Jian had made use of his connections and used other benefits to exchange for the spots. "Brother Kong Xian." Nian Linger waved excitedly when Su Jingxing looked over. Feng Jian was also not far away. He smiled and nodded at Su Jingxing. "Everyone, the space is about to open. Please get ready." Swoosh. 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 As soon as he finished speaking, 5 figures flashed out from the crowd on both sides and floated in the air above the abyss. Under Feng Jian's instructions, Nian Linger and Nian Shuang also stepped out. Seeing this, Su Jingxing controlled his spiritual essence to envelop his body and took a few steps forward, stopping briefly above the abyss. Buzz! Before Su Jingxing could feel the fall, a ball of purple light suddenly erupted from the bottom of the abyss. It touched the void and ripples appeared. These ripples spun like a vortex, and Su Jingxing quickly realized that he was descending. A strange force was pulling him towards the bottom of the abyss. With Feng Xian's earlier advice, Su Jingxing naturally did not resist and allowed his body to slowly descend into the abyss. Nian Shuang, Nian Linger, and 7 others were with Su Jingxing. Before long, the 8 of them disappeared from everyone's sight and entered the dark area surrounded by purple light. Of course, in Su Jingxing's field of vision, there was always purple light lingering around. Through the purple light, he could vaguely see a bare cliff. Until his vision blurred and the void twisted, entering a sea of stars. That's right, a sea of stars. Above his head, below his feet, around him, and in the distance, the space was studded with stars shining brightly. Please reading on myboxnovl.com. The purple light brought the 8 of them to a strange cosmic space. There was clearly no air, but it did not affect his breathing. Beneath his feet was empty space, but he could still walk in the air. The nearby stars were clear and bright, while the distant starlight only glowed. What attracted the most attention was the 9 black towers that stood out of thin air 100 meters to their right. The towers were less than 20 meters tall, with a total of 9 levels. At first glance, they were inconspicuous, no different from the stone towers that could be seen everywhere. However, if one were to stare at them for a long time, they would be attracted to them. Then, it would seem that there was only the existence of the towers in the entire world and nothing else. It was as if the black towers were the center of the world. Pada. The sound of fingers clicking could be heard. Su Jingxing snapped back to his senses and looked at the source of the sound. He saw that it was a Heart-Moon Fox girl who was with them. She was looking smilingly at him, Nian Linger, and the others. Everyone, time is limited. Don't lose yourselves now. Ah, I'm sorry. Nian Linger stuck out her tongue and grinned. Thank you for the reminder, sister. You're welcome. The Heart-Moon Fox girl smiled. My name is Nian Susu. Before we came down, the first chief and the king instructed me to introduce this space to everyone and share the things to take note of. Those who already can just listen. It's actually very simple. This space is called the soul refining space. It's mainly for soul refining, and the thing to pay attention to while refining the soul is the position. As you can see, there are a total of 9 towers over there. These black towers are the source of soul refinement. The doors of 8 of the towers have opened. The 8 of us can enter one each. After entering, we can begin to refine our souls. What I want to remind you here is not to touch anything in the tower after entering. Don't shout loudly or attack the tower. What if I accidentally touch it? Nian Linger couldn't help but ask curiously. Nian Susu glanced at Nian Linger and said with a smile, if you accidentally touch it, unfortunately, the soul refining tower will immediately expel you and close its doors. When the doors open again, it will be a year later. Huh? Nian Linger's mouth fell open with a fearful expression. No. A deep voice sounded. Among the 8 people, other than Su Jingxing, another man in his 30s said in a deep voice, there's something wrong here. There are a total of 9 towers. Why didn't 9 people come in? Su Jingxing was also puzzled about this. 1 pagoda per person. 9 pagodas. Wouldn't that allow for 9 slots? Because the door to the 9th tower has never been opened. Nian Su explained with a smile, no one knows how many years this space has existed, nor does anyone know the origins of the 9 soul refining towers. All we know is that after the Fox ancestors discovered this place, the 9th tower has always been closed. As long as the other 8 towers fully absorb the holy moonlight, they can be opened once a year for us to study, comprehend, and refine our souls. I see. Realization dawned on Nian Linger. She smacked her lips and said, according to this situation, 8 of the 9 soul-refining towers are active, and the last one is dead? You can say that. Nian Susu nodded. But it's not accurate to describe the mysteries of the soul-refining towers as purely active or dead. How about this? Let's go over first. After we get close, we'll have a deeper understanding of the soul-refining towers when we look at them. With that, he was the first to walk over. Su Jingxing followed. The others quickly followed. The group of 8 soon arrived in front of the 9 soul-refining towers. When he got close, he saw that the 9 divine refining towers were indeed very different. They were clearly inanimate objects, but 8 of them gave the illusion that they were alive. However, when he probed deeper, he realized that these towers were very empty. It was not emptiness in the senses, but in consciousness. There was nothing, yet there was everything. Only the 9th tower was pitch black and dead. Although one would be inexplicably immersed in it after looking at it for a long time, it did not contain any other abnormalities. At the bottom level of the other 8 towers, a door as tall as a person had been opened. The interior was white and empty. How is it? Everyone saw, right? Other than the 9th, the other 8 soul-refining towers give us a very unique feeling. Nian Susu's crisp voice sounded. As for the exact feeling, we'll know after we enter. All 8 soul-refining towers are the same, so there's no need to fight. Just choose any one. Time is limited. I'll go in first. See you in 3 days. Waving at everyone, Nian Susu walked straight to a soul-refining tower that faced her and entered through the door on the first level. Swoosh! After Nian Xiaosu entered, the door closed automatically. Let's go in too. The man in his 30s who had spoken earlier greeted everyone, picked a tower and stepped in. Sister, brother Kong Xian, let's go in too, Nian Linger shouted at Su Jingxing. She abandoned Nian Shuang and ran towards the nearest soul-refining tower. See you in 3 days, Su Jingxing replied and also chose the nearest tower. Swoosh! After entering the tower, the latter automatically closed. In the white space, Su Jingxing quickly scanned his surroundings. After confirming that there was no other existence, he closed his eyes and used his soul to comprehend the world. At first, it was the same as before. There was nothing. But gradually, the surrounding space suddenly changed. In the vision of his soul consciousness, the empty world disappeared and was replaced by a nebula. This nebula slowly spun, guiding his consciousness to extend outwards. Starting from a speck of dust, it came into contact with a small pile of soil, then with a plant seed in the small pile. The seed sprouted, took root, broke out of the soil, and then swish! His vision retreated and his consciousness returned. Su Jingxing suddenly opened his eyes and realized that he had already left the soul-refining tower. Nian Shuang, Nian Linger, Nian Susu and the others had also come out. Has it been 3 days already?